So, our next speaker is Teresa Nguyen, who's going to tell us about marriage. Why do some last while others fail? And she's from the Department of Psychology. Teresa.
Half of all marriages will end in divorce. These rates are alarmingly higher among low-income and ethnically diverse couples. Unfortunately, when these couples divorce, they suffer huge financial losses, and a cycle of poverty is created. As the daughter of divorced parents, I grew fascinated with how is that we can help low-income couples from divorcing. Imagine that I gave you $750 million to solve this issue. How would you do it? Well, one option might be to change the way that these couples communicate with one another. You might teach them to avoid rolling their eyes or raising their voice during conflict. Another option is, rather than change the interactions within the relationship, you can change factors outside of the relationship, specifically stress, whether that be from work or finances. The ultimate question is, which is the better option? How would you invest your money? Well, in 2006, the U.S. government invested $750 million on one option, communication. They taught thousands of low-income couples strategies like saying, I feel X when you do Y. Unfortunately, although these strategies have worked in the past for some couples, in this case, the federal plan completely failed. How could that be? Well, one likely reason is that the educational programs were based on research using white middle-class couples, and then assuming that low-income couples had the same resources in their environment to support that learning. You wouldn't teach piano lessons if you didn't know that that person had a piano. So clearly communication doesn't tell the whole story. So my research addressed what kinds of stressors impact low-income Black and Latino couples. Using intensive longitudinal designs, I followed couples and as their relationship satisfaction fluctuated over time, and also how their stress fluctuated. I found that when couples experienced a decrease in stress, especially certain types of stress, the relationship satisfaction went up. But when these same couples later experienced an increase in stress in 4 areas, the relationship satisfaction correspondingly went down. What kinds of stress? Work, finances, health, and discrimination. More importantly, these stressors were a better predictor of the relationship satisfaction than their communication patterns. And so, although it's tempting to help marriages by changing the marriage, we need to think outside the box, or rather, outside the couple. How? With public policy. A few ways to start, among many, include increasing minimum wage and access to childcare and health services. Investing your money on initiatives like these could eliminate the racial and socioeconomic disparities in divorce and help couples not too unlike my own parents. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And I say that if you save just one marriage from your research, it will have been well worth your time. But I hope we can do a great deal more than that. So one question I think is likely to come up. We've seen in the last few decades skyrocketing divorce rates. How would you explain that relative to these stressors you discussed? Do you think that those stressors have increased, or do you think that there's maybe some sort of modern status quo that these stressors simply now fit into?
I think part of what makes this interesting is that I have this hypothesis that sometimes marriages end not because the people don't love each other, but because they are faced with real stressors that get in the way of being able to have a happy relationship. So when we have rising employment rates or few opportunities for advancement in the workplace, perhaps because of discrimination, these factors might be able to say, like, am I contributing financially to my relationship? Is my partner contributing financially? And maybe that's what pushes our marriage around, more so than the fact that I appreciate him as a person or appreciate her as a person.
Terrific. Now, when you look at these two factors, communication and these stressors, is there some way to control the variables so that you can make sure that it's not sometimes stress causing breakdowns in communication?
Yes. So we're talking about causality. Nick, over there. So you're proposing, what if it's stress leads to communication, and then that leads to relationship satisfaction? I would love to have your resources, Nick, to be able to answer this question. My suspicion and what I found is that both are independent contributors to relationship satisfaction. So I have controlled for communication in the past. So despite how positive you are in your communication, despite how you avoid negativity, stress does predict it over and above that. To answer your question, they're both unique. Yeah.
Well, I think that when this research takes off, it obviously is something we all need to take to heart from a public policy perspective, because heaven knows there are so many costs of divorce, and we might quickly learn that a little bit of prevention is worth many pounds of cure. So best of luck with this research, and thanks for presenting.
Teresa Nguyen.
Yay! Our second place winner, who's going to get a $2,000 stipend, is Teresa Nguyen.